Hello, everyone. I hope you're doing well, and welcome to Homemakers Radio. I'm Mrs. Sherman. I'm hoping to speak long enough to be a companion to you while you get some things done at home. So please enjoy your home while you listen. Before you go, I want to share my teacup with you. It's got a amusing little rose in it, and it's by Royal Stafford. I believe it was probably done in the 1970s or 80s as a gift cup. I can usually tell by the size of the handles. If the bigger the handle, it seems like the more up to date it is. But it has this beautiful fluted edge, and the fluted edge on that too, and a little pedestal stand. I wanted to share that with you. And today I am going to homeschool you, and I'm going to encourage you to get dressed and get yourself fixed up, because there's something about taking care of your appearance that makes you feel like doing the work that you're about to endeavor and set upon. And so, ladies, today, if you're not dressed, and you've heard it all before, so I probably don't need to repeat it to some of you, and realize too that this isn't for everyone. Some of you don't care to listen to things too long. I am figuring out how to do maybe a 5 minute, little 5 minute encouraging reports. However, one of the problems with that is I take a lot of notes, and if I'm going to take the trouble to set the camera up and get the area cleaned up to do this, I'd like to talk a substantial amount of time, although I will consider doing the 5 minute ones. And so today I am going to talk to you quite a bit about homeschooling, but it's really about home living. And let's remember, ladies, that homeschooling begins with the word home. So home comes first. And so if you're considering being homeschooled by me, then the first thing that I would tell you is to start getting plenty of rest. No waking up with alarms. Get plenty of natural rest. The other thing I would say is learn about health. I mentioned a health book to you years ago. I believe it was Greater Health God's Way. And I mentioned that because she had divided it up into 6 or 7 things that all combined together. It wasn't just about exercise, and it wasn't just about food, but it was how all these things interacted together, and one of them was rest. So I'd start you out with getting plenty of rest, because you need to have a functioning brain, a functioning mind. And I ran across some not exercises, but a health video just today where a man was talking about how certain types of exercise can activate the brain and clear up the brain. And I have to say that that's true, because I've been doing the sit in the chair exercises. The days that I don't do it, I just am in such a muddle. So I know that for me they help. Now, not everyone is the same. So I'm just telling you that's my experience. It might be yours. And so in this homemaking it just seems so much more purposeful when you're dressed up. I'm wearing a costume today because I just think that once in a while I need to take these things out of storage and wear them. It's probably not good for them to be stored away. And it kind of goes with the blush color that I have redecorated with. And when I decorate, all I'm doing is covering things with old sheets and blankets. So it's not expensive. And so, ladies, so today I want to talk to you a little bit about luxury living. And I'm hoping that you're really enjoying home school. And I'm hoping you're enjoying how it enhances your home and how it brings happiness. You know, I was talking to someone today about happiness and how God's commanded us to be happy, and how it comes. Happy is a man that gets wisdom and understanding. And there's another one about happy is the man who gets knowledge. And so those things can bring happiness. A serious study of wisdom and understanding. You'll find yourself changing. You'll find your heart change. You find your stress going away. Now, I want to talk to you today about luxury living. And this goes along with our next step after getting ready, and that's homemaking. And I've talked to you a lot about captivity because I've been in captivity since July last year, except for 2 trips I had to take out, one to see a friend and one to help my husband take his car to the garage so that he could have it serviced and repaired. And then I had to bring him back, and I think it was a total of 60 miles that we went all together. And I could tell it took me 3 days to really start feeling that peace again after being out there, and I never even got out of the car. So what's out there is where our stress is coming from. And you have to be careful not to bring it in through the media. You can turn on the media, you can turn on your text, and pretty soon a news ad is coming up. And it just gives you more to worry about and to break you down. And then they will sell you their cure. They'll sell you all the remedies that you need to have. And next thing you'll be seeing a therapist, and then you will be seeing, you'll be getting all kinds of life changes that might not be particularly healthy for you. Now, everyone is different. Not everyone is going to be affected by the stress. When I decided to go into captivity, I'd always wanted to do it. I'd always watched these films about people that went into the wilderness and built a house and all the things they did, and they would keep a record of it, and I always thought that would be interesting. But I couldn't get away with it because I had a family that didn't want me to do it and would sabotage it anyway. So when this thing came, when the war came, I decided, well, this is a great excuse. I can hide behind that as a reason and say I don't want to go out. There might be a disease out there. There might be some kind of danger. So I'll just stay in. And I've gotten away with it since last July, except for the 2 times that I had to go out. And Mr. S is my butler, and he goes and gets me everything. And I also order food, fresh food from Imperfect Foods. Once a week I get the small box. And I'm feeling so good. And the food is so delicious and doesn't seem to give me the acid feeling. And also Mr. S says he likes shopping for me because it's a variety. Usually he has things he gets and he knows where to go and it's routine. But when I give him things to buy, he says he has to search other places for it and stop at other places. It makes it more interesting. So he's been my wonderful butler, and I just feel so good because I don't have to go out and get it. There have been little twinges of I want to go somewhere, but then I quickly put it away when I think of having to stop and use some facilities or stop and having to eat or any other inconvenience, and I quickly put that away. In spite of the fact that I've been here in captivity since last July, I can't seem to keep up. I still can't seem to keep up the way I want to. So, but I think it is a little better. I still have a couple of areas I want to work on. And of course, summer hit us quite suddenly. And now I have a whole other, you might say, house because of the yard, the patios, and everything that needs to be cleaned up and things that need to be planted. And so it's a big job. And then, of course, I have company often, and I have just finished the train trip, which, I turned my house into a train. And then I'm going into planning for the next holiday for my descendants. Not sure what that's going to be. It might be a trip to the homestead. It might be a trip on a luxury liner on the ocean. I don't know what it's going to be. So we will see. Or it just might be a homeschool weekend experience where a cultural experience where I take them into art, music, literature. And I don't know, I'm thinking about it, but I've got a few more areas to get ready for that. And so now for the home. I've talked a lot about captivity, and I kind of made a culture out of it. There was captivity clothing and captivity comforts, captivity cleaning, and captivity care, like care packages, and captivity cuisine, and captivity crafts. Well, now I decided I've had enough of that, and I'm having luxury living. So how can you live in luxury at home without all the stuff out there, depending on the stuff out there. Well, cottagecore is something people are rediscovering, and that is the things that we used to do, like painting something white just to make it look, give it a fresh new look. We had little pieces of furniture, a little stool, a chair, or something. We would just paint it white, and that in the olden days. And we were the original shabby chic people because that's what we did. And we did all kinds of things to make life luxury. Polished silver. We might have 2 or 3 pieces of cutlery that didn't match, but we polished them. And we did things that seemed very luxurious. We had fresh flowers for the centerpiece, but they weren't anything from the hothouse. They were just what we could find around, you know. I remember even as children, we would pick grass and think that we were giving our mothers something pretty. It was in our little fists, and it was a bouquet, and she so graciously received it. And so it's just luxury, the luxury. So I'm going to call it luxury living instead of captivity living. And so I'm going to have some things that I can list. You know, we got used to, in homemaking, we got used to housekeeping with dependency on what's out there. We depended on what the cleaning products were. We depended on other things and entities and corporations and things like that for our, you know, for cleaning. Well, now, while we're at home, we can use old-fashioned things. You can look it up. I had someone in one of my Thrive classes. I've got a Zoom Thrive class for one of my grandchildren, for several of my grandchildren. And one of the things I wanted them to look up was how did they make things rise, like baking, when you're baking, without yeast and without baking powder. And there were a number of things. And they are to look those up on the internet and see if they can find recipes using the old-fashioned ways of making things rise before these 2 things could be bought in cans and bottles. And one of them was vinegar. I believe another one was eggs. And there were, I forget what some of the others were, but be interesting to see what they come up with. But these are actually luxuries. The real thing is always luxury, right? So here's a luxury living item. Time. Someone asked me what I wanted for my birthday, and I said, I want time off. But actually, wouldn't it be nice to have more time before you got tired and had to go to sleep? Wouldn't that be nice to have more time? And so time is such a luxury that staying home gives you just that little bit more time. And you know, you get this when you get stressed, you get tightness in the chest like this. And I would really honestly suggest you do the sitting in the chair exercises. I've told you this several times about those. Just 5 minutes takes the strain off of your back, takes the pressure off your chest, and helps you breathe better. Stress can slow down your breathing, and it's all in here. It's all your thoughts. And when you realize that you've gone so long in life that maybe your children or someone else has never seen you really relaxed and happy, think back to the time when you were last at ease, when you were last feeling happy and non-stressed, and try to recreate the situation, the elements of that at home. What were you thinking? What were you eating? What was the atmosphere? Why were you not stressed? And try to recreate that. I always like, this is why I tell you that childhood should be happy and carefree and free from worry and heavy responsibility. And like the children shouldn't be worrying about their future and whether or not they're going to starve or whether the world is coming to an end. Give them that, because that could be something that when you're under stress, you can go back to your childhood. And I know Mr. S had a wonderful childhood on the farm in Kansas, and he says he always goes back to the time he was in the sleeping porch of his grandmother's house, and he was listening to a honeybee outside, and he was listening to the crows during the harvest season around the corn and just listening to the breeze as he fell asleep out there in the heat. And everyone needs to give themselves a good, happy, carefree childhood. And even if you're an older woman, you can still do that. You can do those little things. I mentioned that book, Cottage Core. It's not a fancy book, and I wasn't real pleased with some of the, photography and everything. You could probably write your own, and you'd do a better job. Just write it in a blank book. Or make yourself one of those mini journals and do your own Cottage Core book. Call it something else, of course. And it was just little things like collecting rocks and putting them in a little basket and displaying them, or picking up a feather, or making your own bread dough, your own starter dough, or making a pair of mittens from an old sweater, or just it was everything. It was taking a walk, that sort of thing. It reminded me of the man who wrote the book, The Jane Austen Diet, which wasn't about a diet at all. It was about how life was the way that they kept their health and their weight and their nutrition was through life, going for walks and having tea and things like that. So time, and also a happy, carefree childhood. If you didn't get one, if you didn't get a happy, carefree childhood, it's not too late to create one for yourself. Have a special box of things that you like to look at, that you go through, and things that you like to do that give you a carefree feeling and a peace, and take away the stress. Now, we used to go for walks in the old days. Women would naturally get under stress. Yes, it's always been there. But they used to go for walks, and then they would come back refreshed. And it was called a constitution, I think. They're going to go take a constitution. And they went for walks. But nowadays, when people go for walks, what do? They use it for building strength and exercise and physical things, and they don't think of it as a time to be around nature and to feel things, to activate all senses. This is what that Cottage Core book was about using the senses. I think there's probably more than 5 senses, but these were using the 5 senses. And also, I had this book that I was telling you about, was Terry Willett's, and she wrote she wrote a bigger book, but she wrote these 5 little books on the 5 senses for the home. And this is how to make your home look sensational. Now, I am very visual, so this appealed to me. But there were 5 of these little books. I'll try to get a picture of this in the post for you. And this goes along with what I'm saying, is to create a stress-free atmosphere so that you can relax. And also do the 5-minute chair exercise that I mentioned, because that'll take the strain, that'll take this pressure from here and the strain out of your back. And also look into nutrition and good water and sleep, lots of good rest. And this was one of the ones that I liked, and it said, begin with something beautiful. So I want to read you one of the pages here. If you're wondering where to start, and this is part of my luxury living theme today. If you're wondering where to start to make a room pleasing to the eye, begin with what you have and love. Then work your way up, starting with the floor, furniture, walls, windows, and finally accessories. Well, that's the basis of home design, home decor, is to start with the floor, what you have on the floor. I showed you that rug I had that I just took the stencil painted it just to brighten it up. And then you work up the wall towards the walls. Notice what's on the walls and the furniture. And of course, I like to cover mine because it's actually Grandma's furniture. It's my husband's mother's furniture, so I keep covers on them to hide the wear and tear on them and give it a fresh new look. And then it says windows, and finally accessories. Well, windows, curtains and window dressings. And these things are easy. You don't need to buy anything. I think you could probably just scrounge around and get things that you already have. Clean as you go, she says. Arrive at a practical compromise for cleanliness and sanity. If things are orderly and lovely to look at, a little dust or dirt won't be as distracting. Yes, I have noticed the advantage of cleaning as you go. That means you don't leave a room without tidying up after yourself or without doing some little. I've often just gone and grabbed a cleaning cloth and some spray vinegar and cleaned a mirror just because I walked past it and saw it like that. You don't have to wait for a cleaning day. You just become automatic. So anyway, this is part of luxury living, and that is 101 quick tips to make your home look sensational. And so I wanted you to know about that. Now, I have a lot of other things I want to show you, but I'm going to continue a little bit with luxury living at home. This also is part of your homeschooling because I'm going to bring in some homeschool things. Now, all homeschool is, remember, home comes first, school comes second. And if you want to homeschool yourself or someone else, get rid of the idea that it's about putting 6 hours of book work and desk work in. That's not it at all. Just because a child is in school for that many hours doesn't mean he's absorbing it all. A lot of it is socialization. And other times it's indoctrination, and it's just it's not as useful as what you could do at home, and it's not even natural. Home is natural living, and you can learn as you go. You can clean as you go, and you can turn things into learning opportunities. And one of the things somebody suggested to me is that with numbers, she found out what her children liked. Well, one of them liked horses, and another liked something else, and another liked food. And so she would turn the numbers into horses, or numbers into money, or the numbers into something that that they could understand, and that they'd be more appealing to them, and teach them how to teach them honesty in numbers. One of the things that really I guess concerns me is the way that Christians often think that mathematics doesn't have any spiritual value one way or other. Math is math. 1 and 1 is 2. And why do we need to, even bring anything Christian into that? But let me tell you, if you don't, the world is going to corrupt it. They will corrupt 1 and 1 plus 2 is 2. They'll corrupt that. They'll say it's not. And believe me, they will corrupt the most basic things. And so we were so grateful for the Abeka 6th grade mathematics book, because at the top of each page was a beautiful scripture that had to do with something like, even the hairs on your head are numbered. Or when God took Abraham out and showed him the stars of the sky and the sand of the sea, and said your descendants will be more than that. And so it was talking about numbers, and then the 6 days of creation, and the 7th in which he rested, and how to use the number 7 in multiple ways. And one of my grandsons, apparently, I didn't hear it from him exactly, but his parents told me that he could learned a way of math that he could multiply and subtract and add and divide on his 10 fingers without using his toes. And I wish I could get my correspondent to call me and tell me how he did that, but everybody's so busy. I just thought that you might like to know about that. And of course, with food preparation, we learn about our fractions then, don't we? And we learn about measurements. We learn about weights. And you think, well, fractions are fractions. But did you know that the world will corrupt that? And they'll give you, God hates false weights and measures. Isn't that what the Proverbs say? And that he hates false weights and measures. Well, the world has always participated in false weights and measures. Saying something weighs something that it does not, whether it's more or less, in order to get out of paying or to charge somebody more See, this is why the Christian has to have Christian values in mathematics. You could probably, a lot of you are very smart. You could probably think of examples of this. And so leave me a comment if you know something about it. Values, Christian values in mathematics. And I have had people give me books. They're old mathematics books, but they were from the public schools, and they were saying, well, you're homeschooling, and someone might want this. This math is math. Well, that's like saying science is science and history is history. It all has to have a biblical, godly viewpoint. Otherwise, it can be corrupted. So I'll say no more about that, I hope. So now let's talk about luxury. I said time is luxury. And so time is luxury. And when you've cleaned your house, you've given yourself time. You've bought some time. Now you can sit down and look at something, one of your tools. Let me see, where are those tools? See what I did with that. I don't know what I did with it. Here they are. Now I talked to you about tools like your clothing and your apron and your good food and the tools in your kitchen that you use for preparation. Get the best to prepare your foods with. But one of the tools for homemaking that I would suggest, and you probably have your own taste and everybody's different, is I've mentioned to you about this Victoria magazine. If you can possibly afford it. It's a tool because you'll keep these probably forever. I've kept them all since 1987 and still use them. But there's never a discouraging word. They always have things that are bright and uplifting in it. For instance, here's their contents page, and they always they're more careful with their advertisements. I've noticed that they're not as worldly, but for instance, they went to I believe Holland or Denmark. I'm not sure in this one. So there, you've got something you can learn about Holland or Denmark in it, and then they have something about an artist and growing roses, and they have interior design and pictures and celebrations, and then they have the recipes to go with, and they have something to do with textiles and history things. So give yourself a treat to these two magazines. They're both by the same publication. It's Hoffman Media, Tea Time, and Victoria. And they also have one that comes out once in a while called Entertainment and Celebration or something like that. Entertain and Celebrate, something like that. But they're very good, and they have such nice paper, and it's almost like a parchment. So, ladies, I have just got a few more things with luxury living to talk to you about. And how about luxury cuisine, luxury food? That would be the stuff straight out of your garden would be the most luxurious. So a garden is luxury living, isn't it? Many people don't think they can have a garden, but you actually can. You can buy a little bit of dirt and a container, maybe like that's long, that you can set on your balcony or set somewhere outside where it will get the elements and grow some little thing. Even if it doesn't do well, at least try. They say with growing things, when you start out with new soil, the first year it sleeps, the second year it creeps, and the third year it leaps. So give it some time and try again, because somebody will say, oh, I started a garden and nothing came up, nothing happened. But the next year, maybe there'll be something added in the soil that will help. And then the third year, and then you're on your way. So be patient. And then, so cuisine, luxury cuisine. And naturally, do you know that all the restaurants and the old-fashioned inns used to serve food from their own gardens back in the olden days? And if you can do that, that's luxury. The second best thing would be go to the fresh food market and get your own, pick out your own. It still tastes better. And staying away from packaged foods, that's a luxury. So it's actually luxury health, isn't it? How about luxury activities? You know, we had a tea here, one lady's class, and we invited someone who was an experienced homeschool lady, and she came and she delivered a lesson to us on the creation. And she did day one and day two, and she was explaining to us about water, and she brought ice, and she brought a kettle, and she showed us about condensation and different things to do with water. And then she got into the math of it, about light, how fast light was, and how many light years away something was. And she was really into it. And then she gave us all a little flashlight, and she gave us all a little bottle of pure water. And I have to tell you that the activity, the ladies just enjoyed it so much, and their eyes were just glued to her, because this was a different way, and we all need a change. She comes once a month and she presents a lesson to us. And one of the young ladies that came is a watercolor art teacher, and I will leave you her, and I believe it's called The Artworthy Life. And she presents these lessons. I believe they're on Facebook. I'm not on Facebook, but she also has posted some of them on YouTube. And so you can go and follow what she does. And it's really nice to have a Christian teaching these things, because you're not going to run into all the controversy and stress that other students might bring when they start talking about things off the subject, or maybe on the subject. But I want to leave that with you, because she has done this, and she's a young woman, and she's found something to do that she can offer, and she's very very precise, and also keeps the Lord in it too. Also, luxury is handcrafted. Now, I was told many years ago, if you wanted to sell something that you've made, don't call it homemade, call it handcrafted. And like if you've got a little package that have things in it, it's hand packed. Nothing is handmade, it's handcrafted, or hand designed, or something like that. And so handcrafted is a luxury. Just like when I got that gift of the herbs, and it was tied with this torn piece of cloth, I thought, what a luxury that is. And I took the torn piece of cloth and I used it as a tie back for my front window curtain and my front door curtain. And you can do so many things with these little luxuries. So how about luxury care of yourself? That is a luxury. We've been so dependent on things out there to take care of us. And now people are learning to take care of their own hair, their own skin, and not depend so much on things that are out there. That's where the stress is, isn't it? The commercial world is tremendous stress to some people. Other people maybe not so much. I personally don't miss pushing the cart around, and I do order a lot of things. But even online ordering, sometimes I restrain. I just want to push myself away from it. So there is a lot of stress there. And if you want to get rid of stress in your life, there will be some things you have to give up. And one of the things you have to give up is worry. I did tell you, didn't I, years ago on one of these videos of an old McGuffey reader. Goodness, it might have been the 5th McGuffey reader, I'm not sure. The Christian School edition. And it was about the man with a big burden on his back, a big pack on his back, and he was just weighted down with it, bent over. And he was walking along in the hot sun on a road, and so another man came along with a horse and cart. This was all written, of course, in the 1800s, these readers, and he offered him a ride. And so the man got in the back of the cart, and after a while, the driver noticed that the man had not taken the pack off of his back. And so he stopped, and he said, you can put that burden down. You don't have to carry it. And isn't that the way with us? We've got a great God. We have Christ, and we're supposed to cast all our cares on him. And we say we do, but then we go around and start carrying it ourselves again, and that's very harmful. And it's a hard thing to do if you've gotten used to being in anxiety and you're pumping away all this adrenaline, and it just gives you more energy for more worry, and it's just a tremendous cycle. It's very hard to stop, but you could start with your exercises. You could start with good nutrition, and then sleep. Lots of good sleep. If your sleep is being disturbed, the stress has gotten too much, and I would suggest you just slow down and get rid of some of the world. And I found that worked for me was putting myself into a kind of a captivity, and it helped a lot. So now, so care of self, and that's part of luxury, to have that time. We grow up and we're put into stress right away. At 6 years old, it's hurry up, run to the bus, or hurry up, we've got to go, and go somewhere else. And the stress is started very early in life. But when you're home, you can take deliberate good care of yourself. So also, luxury is doing things yourself. Now, I want to go on to something else called figures of speech. I did do that in some of my earlier videos. But a figure of speech is where something is said that is a little exaggerated or witty, or is an illustration to make a point. And Jesus used them to teach reluctant hearers the principles of life that he wanted them to understand. And it's comparisons, using comparisons, things like that. Well, there was one figure of speech that was used in the Old Testament, I believe. Get your house in order. And I believe it was for today, your soul will be required. It just meant you're going to die, get your house in order. Well, some people will look at that and say, well, that just means he needed to clean his house. That wasn't what that meant. That was a figure of speech, meaning, see, house and home and family were all interactive and kind of meant the same thing. Like the house of Jacob, the house of someone else just meant the family. And people still use that. But to get your house in order meant get your will taken care of, get things in order, so that if you have to depart from this world, people can easily find things and get your affairs in order and get your property taken care of and all that. Well, I'm going to use that figure of speech on you for your house for real. Get your house in order. Get your house cleaned up in order, and so that if you are called on to help, because I am telling you, and I told you some time ago on one of these videos, that some of you are going to be called, just like this grandmother that took her grandson, who was kind of falling between the cracks because the schools were so confused, and it confused him, and took him out in the country where they live, and are helping him build a life for himself and helping him to understand life. And you may be called on. You don't know. Even if you didn't homeschool and you didn't go to homeschool, you can teach people how to live. You can teach your grandchildren. You can teach them how to spell and how to speak and good grammar. You know something, don't you? And you taught your own children the language that you speak. You taught them their language. Do you ever wonder how you did that? You probably didn't even know you were doing it. Well, you were homeschooling and didn't even know it. And so get your house in order. If you've got things that are holding you back and you don't have time for anything because you've got stuff that's bogging you down, get that in order, in case you are called on to help someone. And that's one of my goals too, is to get everything in order, just in case my time is needed to help someone. Now, for helping people that want to homeschool, you need to be really careful not to impose all your ideas, because everybody is different and they have their own ideas. They have their own needs. and they will see character qualities in their children that maybe you'll find a good character quality book and you'll say, oh, use this book. Maybe that wouldn't work for them. But the point is just to give them the idea of it and inspire them to do it and encourage them and offer to help in some way, whether it's to provide a book or maybe a little class for them or just encouragement. But be careful not to take over, because when I was homeschooling and I had this woman help me with this book, The Writing Road to Reading, I didn't want her to come over and do all the work and be the teacher for my children. I wanted to experience it. I wanted to be their teacher. And one of our problems is we've outsourced so much that we'd gladly let someone come in and do all the work, because we're so used to it being done for us out there in the institutions. And we've got to quit doing that, because God intended for our lives to impact other people's lives and not be so outsourced, but in the home, that we can help other people. And I also think that you should get your house in order just in case you're called on to help with your grandchildren. Maybe they're not troubled or anything, but maybe you will be used in some way. So get your house in order in case you're called on to help. The other thing I think that is very important is wherever you live and whatever circumstances you're in, we always want to have goals to do better. We always want to have goals to rise above it and to maybe move on to something that would serve us better as far as our location or our home. But do your best to use it to elevate your life and to elevate the lives of others. You can learn a lot about that through some of the materials that I have spoken to you about. Now I have a McGuffey reader, and I'm going to read it to you, a little bit to you. And it's about speaking gently, and I have read this to you before. This is the third reader. Now one of my grandchildren is in this book, using this book, so I have a copy, so I wanted to read this to you because it's something that we needed to learn, all of us, when we were much younger, but it's never too late. We can learn to speak gently. So here it is. Speak gently. It is better far to rule by love than fear. I saw a video someone had done about how the person that has to rule by fear does it because they can't persuade, and they can't win your love, so they have to force you. So this is really important too, because if you love someone, you're going to follow them. And you look at Jesus Christ. He said, if I be lifted up from the earth, I will draw all men unto me. So the dictator type isn't going to draw anyone to them. They're only going to impose their will and rule by fear. So let's speak gently. Speak gently, it is better far to rule by love than fear. Speak gently, let no harsh words mar the good that we might do here. If you go into a rage, or you're frenetic and frantic and you get loud, the child isn't going to understand the message. He's just going to see you in a rage and be frightened, and he won't understand the message. It's very distracting. Speak gently to the little child, its love be sure to gain. Teach it in accents soft and mild, it may not long remain. Speak gently to the aged one, grieve not the careworn heart. The sands of life are nearly run, let such in peace depart. Speak gently, kindly to the poor, let no harsh tone be heard. They have enough they must endure without an unkind word. Speak gently to the erring. Know they must have toiled in vain. Perhaps unkindness made them so. Oh, win them back again. Speak gently, 'tis a little thing dropped in the heart's deep well. The good, the joy which it may bring, eternity shall tell. And this is on page 114 of the third McGuffey reader. I'm getting a lot out of these primary elementary school McGuffey readers, because of course I didn't grow up with them, and probably you didn't either. You can educate yourself. You can be homeschooled. Get some of these things. Get these things, and put yourself through a course. You don't know when you're going to be used. You just don't know. And then I read you this one before, the man that had the 7 sticks, and he had 7 sons who were quarreling, and he took the sticks apart and broke them one by one, and then he got 7 sticks and put them in a bundle and asked each of the sons to try to break them, and they couldn't, and the lesson that was there. And so now I want to teach you something about character. And I told you there are 3 scriptures that I'm using for character. There are also all the Old Testament people who suffered the consequences of what they did or rewarded with what they did. And you can use those for character too. The contrast between people like Jacob and Esau, Cain and Abel, etc., and on through the Bible. But character, I'm using the 3 main scriptures that have lists. Galatians 5:22 and 23. The fruit of the Spirit is love, joy, peace, kindness, goodness, etc. And Philippians 4:8. Think on things that are good, lovely, pure, just, of good report, and virtuous. And then 2 Peter chapter 1, verse 5 through 8, which is add to your faith virtue, and to your virtue knowledge, and to knowledge self-control. Those are all character qualities. You can take them out separately and learn what they are and practice them. But one of the character qualities in this character analysis page that I found was do you fail to live the way you believe because of what other people may think? That is a serious character flaw. If you feel like you have a lot of pressure on you and you're always being treated badly, you may want to check into that. Do not fail to live the way you believe because of what other people will think. You need to step out on faith also and do some things. I tell you, it's hard. I remember the day that I decided I was going to be a homemaker and I was going to homeschool my children. I was shaking because I knew there would be a backlash against me, but it was never enough to make me quit. It was never enough to make me give up, because it's so delightful, and it is such a joy that you don't want to go the other. It's like dying, I suppose. Those people over on the other side, how we cry for them and we miss them terribly. But they're over there thinking, no, I don't want to come back. This is wonderful. I want to stay here in bliss. And so that was the way it was with homeschooling. No matter how much pain and grief people gave me over it. And the ladies in the 80s got it the worst, didn't they? You could probably tell a story about it. Something that happened to you or something cruel someone said, and no matter how bad it wasn't enough to make us quit, was it? It would grieve us sometimes. Yes, it would shake you up and give you stress. It was just terrible. So now I'm going to read to you a little bit out of this book, and it's called Grammar and Composition, and I have read to you before out of it, but this is using commas, like the pause in a sentence. And, you don't need these books. You could just use the Bible if you wanted, or some other books that you have for reading. You as a reading lesson, why not? You know how a recipe is? It'll give you the list of all the ingredients and how much. And then there's a little paragraph under it that says, add this to this, and then add this to this. Then, then do this, then put into prepared pans. Read that. That's a good reading lesson. Okay, here's a sentence that you have to put commas in. Now, this is why I say that Christian education is so important for the heart and the mind and the soul, and it's very shallow otherwise. There is true dignity in labor, and there is no true dignity without it. That's not only a sentence to put a comma in, but it is worth discussing. It's a principle that's worth talking about. We swept the floor and mopped it and then coated it with wax. See, there are two commas in that one. But it's good principles of working. The diamond cannot be polished without friction, nor can the man be perfected without trials. Stop and have a discussion about that and show examples. Government cannot make good men, but good men can make good government. A scorner seeks wisdom and finds it not. Weeping may endure for a night, but joy comes in the morning. Sometimes ladies especially get all stressed out and they just think they're just gonna collapse, and after a night's rest they get up and it feels better in the morning. These are just things that you could discuss. You don't just sit a book in front of kids and say, oh, fill that out and this is how you do it. You have to come alongside them and do it with them. Which is one reason I think it's important that the parent do it, because yes, we'd all like for someone to come in and do it for us, but you're developing a relationship and a bonding that's going to serve you well in years to come. One of the reasons we're so stressed out is because the world likes to take away what's rightfully ours with our children and grandchildren and our friends, so that we don't have the comfort of those. Your children are your future comfort and your future support structure, and you want to have that. And if you turn your kids over to somebody else to educate, you might not have that. All right. Now, I encourage you all to get yourself some kind of a notebook that has a pocket in it and some little tabs, and divide it into sections that you can put things that are important to you in it that might be useful someday for you. Part diary and journal, and part information, just about everything, and to keep one of these things and write down what your goals are for yourself as far as character. What character quality? Write down the scriptures that I mentioned. And as far as character qualities, what would you like to improve on? And give yourself a plan for improving it. How would you improve that? And one of the things I wanted to do, I don't know if this is character or not, but I wanted to be an artist and learn some art. So I wrote down I was going to have to find some classes. I always resisted going to classes because it meant I'd have to leave my home, pay a huge amount of money, and be driving at night. So I finally, when the war came, these classes came up online, and it's been a great advantage to me. And so I've just been so happy to do it. Now I can do it in the comfort of my home, just like you're listening to this in the comfort of your home or your car or wherever you are. Now, I also wanted to emphasize two other things, and you might not take it seriously, but and there are some things in this book. I've mentioned this before, Christian Charm Course. If you want to be homeschooled, get yourself one of these. And it's a workbook, and take yourself through it. You can also order, I believe, the teacher's manual. But if you don't want to fill it out, just copy the pages that need to be written in and do your own notebook so you can use it again. And there are some things that you probably find that are in error. For instance, some of the spiritual things, I did question some of it, but still, generally, it's good. Generally, it's really, really good. Tells how to study the Bible. Well, I might have added something. You can add things that you want, That's the things I thought, well, they should have added this or said it. But you can do that yourself when you're homeschooling yourself. So I would say Christian Charm Course, really important, because it's everything. How many of you would still like at your age to have better posture and better breathing and just better thinking? How many of you would like to know about just taking better care of yourself and table manners and things like that, and ways to dress and to fix your hair? And it's not a surface, shallow thing to do that. It's glorifying God. But I would tell you something. You also need to get this one, Man in Demand. This is a serious book because it teaches young boys and young men against immorality. Probably and this does too for the girls, but this gives the men a huge amount of responsibility, the young men. And I think that the young girls should read this too, so they will know how young men are supposed to behave, and what ones to avoid, and what how to encourage the young men, and how to keep the young men from temptation themselves. And so, look, you should go ahead and get both of them. And if you have girls, have them go through this too, because they need to know what's expected of young men as far as morality. It's not always all on the girl. So I would just encourage you to do that. Get them for yourself. Get them for yourself. In anything, the Bible says first take the log out of your own eye before, correcting the splinter that's in your brother's eye. Anything you want your children to be that yourself. Do whatever it takes. Improve your own character and your own. That's one beautiful thing about homeschooling, is you're learning along with them. And so I have only one more thing to read to you. And that is, I'm not going to actually read it to you, but it's from the Bible, and I've been talking about Exodus. Now, Exodus means the going out, or the exit. And so here we have the Hebrews. They were in captivity for 400 years in, I believe it was the land of Goshen. And so now God heard their cry and brought them out. But now it's an entirely new life, and it's kind of like us, coming out of captivity where everything's shut down, and now we've got freedom coming back little by little, we think. And of course, you can't trust these people, can you? And but at home, our freedom has always been there, but it's limited to you lose your freedom when you start abusing things. Like, I won't have any freedom to rest if I don't clean up and keep it restful where I've got a place to sit. I kind of lose my freedom. If I pile it full of books, if I pile a chair full of books that I need to sit in, I'm lost my freedom. So freedom is based on responsibility. And see, the Israelites were coming out of Egypt. Well, now it's a whole new journey. They'd had how many generations is 400 years? I don't know. Is a generation 35 years? Or 25 years? Or 45 years? I'm not sure. Generations of a certain type of lifestyle where their food was provided for them, and their work was assigned to them, and their life was mapped out for them. And now they're going into the wilderness. They don't have any skills for that. So everything has to be taught to them. It's going to be hard. Freedom is hard, isn't it? It's not as easy as slavery in a way, because you're going to have to think for yourself. And I've even heard people that have lived in places that were, let's say, very restrictive, say that they missed it because they didn't have to make any decisions. And so now, you're coming into freedom, you're coming out of captivity, you're making an exit, and now you have to learn how to handle your freedom. It's like children, when they're little, we're very cautious with them, and we teach them, and we watch over them and everything. And as they learn skills and they learn their freedom skills, we let them take a little bit of freedom to as they learn to handle it. Well, it's the same with us, just like the Israelites coming out of Egypt. They had to handle a new kind of life that involved freedom, but it took responsibility, and it was hard work. It was not the same. Some of them wanted to go back to Egypt, and you'll find that with homeschooling, that there'll be the occasional person that will say, well, I just want to go back to Egypt or public school. It's all laid out for you. All the courses are all laid out, and there's a big plan and everything, and we don't know our plan from maybe we planned a week ahead, but that's all. We don't really know. They've got a big plan though for our kids, so we feel like it's superior, and so people want to go back because it's all planned out. We don't have to think for ourselves. Well, now while we're in homeschooling, we're coming out of Egypt, and we're going to have to be really independent and try to do it our way and do it ourselves. And you can learn to have a relationship with God and with your children on your way out. And so I don't think it's wise to want to go back to Egypt. You're just going back into the very thing that's going to set your children up for stress, and for you too. So think about that and read about in Exodus the children of the Hebrews and how they came out of Egypt, how they came out of captivity. And then it was a whole new learning thing because they had enemies. You see, when they were in captivity, the state took care of their enemies, the state took care of their food, the state took care of their work assignments, and their lives were mapped out. Well, now they're coming into the wilderness, and that's what we are. We're in a wilderness in a way, and you have to learn. We have to learn things for ourselves, and our lives aren't mapped out for us. But with the character, learning in the character, learning and learning to live at home in a beautiful way, and just enjoying life. That's what it's all about, isn't it? Homeschooling, and I didn't mean for this to just be about homeschooling because some of you aren't interested in that, but in general, your home life is more important than what's out there. And you can get more rest at home if you create a restful atmosphere and you don't allow the world in it. And if you can stay away from, of course, I always try to stay away from discussions of the war, but of course somebody is always going to tell me, and I get a twinkle in my eye wondering how long it's going to take before they mention the war. So ladies, I hope that this has helped in some way. If not, you're free to choose another video of someone's to watch, and if it wasn't enough time to get anything done, it's on a playlist and probably should go to the next one, to the one previous to that. And I hope to get here more often. And I thank you so much for all these wonderful comments. That's why I'm here again so soon, is because the comments, they're so helpful. Everything you say is so helpful. Some of you are so smart, you should start your own publication and your own blog. So I hate to say goodbye, but the clock on the clubhouse wall says it's time to go. So I'll talk to you later. Bye.